They say history is written by the victors, in the gleaming ink of triumph and on the polished steel of their finest machines. But I've learned that the most profound lessons, the truest stories of the human spirit, are not found in the gleaming halls of victory. They are etched in the rust and scars of the forgotten, in the cold, silent steel of failure. My name is Arthur, and for 40 years I have been the custodian of this museum, a vast cathedral of iron and memory. Tourists flock to see the legends, the Sherman, the T-34, the Tiger. They stand in awe of their power, their legacy of success. But when the last visitor has gone and the great doors are bolted, I do not walk among the titans. My steps lead me to a different hall, one tucked away in the West Wing, a place the brochures rarely mention. We call it the Gallery of Endeavor, but in the hushed whispers of the staff, it's known as the Hall of Misfits. And it is here, among the 10 worst tanks of the Second World War, that the real stories of courage are told. Tonight, the moonlight streams through the high-arched windows, casting long shadows that make these metal beasts seem to breathe. I begin my walk, as I always do, with the one that never even got the chance to fail in battle, the British cruiser Mark V, the Covenanter. It sits here pristine, its paint almost untouched. It was a machine born with a fatal flaw, a heart that beat too hot. Its engine was a furnace, its cooling system a cruel joke. It was so unreliable, so prone to breaking down from its own internal fire, that the High Command deemed it unfit for combat. It never heard a shot fired in anger. I look at its clean lines and imagine the frustration of the crews who trained in it, knowing they were preparing for war in a machine that would be its own first casualty. Its story is not one of combat, but of a different kind of battle, the struggle against flawed design. A quiet testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest obstacle is the very tool you've been given. From there, my gaze drifts to the corner dedicated to the Imperial Japanese Army. Here the story is one of desperate courage in the face of obsolescence. I place a hand on the thin flank of the Type 89 I go. This tank was a relic from 1929, yet it was thrown into the crucible of 1941. Its armor, a mere 17 millimeters thick, was paper against the Allied guns. Its short 57 millimeters cannon was more suited for knocking down doors than dueling with other tanks. It was a symbol of an army trying to fight a modern war with the ghosts of the past. Beside it sits the diminutive Type 94 tankette. It's barely a tank at all. More of a motorized coffin for two. Its armor could be pierced by heavy rifle fire, and its only weapon was a single machine gun. I think of the men inside, cramped in a space no bigger than a closet, knowing they had no answer for a real tank, no defense against a well-aimed shot. Their only weapon was a sliver of hope and an ocean of duty. Then there is the Type 95 Hago, Japan's most produced tank. The Americans who faced it called it the steel coffin. Its armor was thin, its 37 millimeters gun was a pea-shooter against the hide of a Sherman, and its gasoline engine had a terrifying habit of bursting into flames at the slightest provocation. To crew a Hago was to know, intimately, that your machine was more dangerous to you than it was to the enemy, yet they fought. In those steel coffins they charged, a tragic monument to bravery mismatched with technology. I move on to the hulking, awkward silhouette of the American M3 Lee. It's a giant, merely 3 meters tall, a perfect target on the flat sands of North Africa. Its design is a study in compromise. The main 75 millimeters gun, a powerful weapon for its time, was bizarrely mounted in the hull, able to traverse only a few degrees left or right. To aim it, the entire tank had to turn. High above, in a small turret, sat a lesser 37 millimeters gun. It took a crew of 7 men to operate this clumsy beast, a committee trying to drive a battleship on land. The two guns could rarely be brought to bear on the same target, a schizophrenic design for a desperate time. But this tank was a stopgap, a machine rushed into service because it was what they had. And its crews learned to make it work. They became masters of positioning, of teamwork, of wrestling this flawed giant into a fight and against all odds, winning. Its failure in design became a catalyst for human ingenuity. Nearby, a low-slung Soviet T-26 rests in the shadows. Its armor was only 15 millimeters thick, vulnerable to German anti-tank rifles, even heavy machine guns. Its own crews had a grim nickname for it, a coffin on tracks. In the opening days of Operation Barbarossa, thousands of these tanks were sent to stem the tide of the panzer divisions. They were annihilated. But in every burning wreck, there was a crew who did not run, who fired their small cannon until they were silenced. They were buying time, paying for it with their lives inside a tank that offered almost no protection. I passed the British section and paused before two starkly different, yet equally tragic machines. The infantry tank Mark I, the Matilda. Its only virtue was its armor, which was immensely thick for its day. But that was where the virtues ended. It was agonizingly slow, crawling across the battlefield at a top speed of 8 miles per hour, slower than a man could run. Its crew baked inside its unventilated compartment in the North African heat. And its 2-pounder gun, while adequate against early tanks, soon became obsolete, unable to scratch the paint of later German armor. It was a fortress that could barely move and couldn't fight back effectively. Then its successor, the Churchill. While later versions became legendary, the early Mark IV was a catastrophe. Its story is forever linked to the disastrous Dieppe raid. Many of them never even made it off the beach. Not destroyed by enemy fire, but defeated by their own mechanical unreliability, their tracks churning uselessly on the shingle. They were slow, undergunned, and when the order came to retreat, their lack of speed and agility made it impossible. They were left behind, monuments of failure on a beach of sorrow. My walk is nearing its end, and I stand before the final trio. The fallen heroes. These were not tanks that were bad from the start. They were tanks that time had rendered obsolete, yet they were forced to fight on. The American M3 Stuart, a nimble and effective light tank in 1941, became a Purple Heart box by 1943. Its 37mm gun was useless against the upgraded armor of German and Japanese tanks. It was fast, but it couldn't run from a shell. Every crew that rolled out in a Stuart in the later years of the war knew they were in a death trap, their chances of survival plummeting with each passing month. Beside it, the German Panzer III. In 1940 it was the king of the battlefield, the tip of the Blitzkrieg spear. But by 1943, on the Eastern Front, it was a death sentence. Its 50mm gun bounced harmlessly off the sloped armor of the Soviet T-34, while the T-34's 76mm cannon could pierce the Panzer III from any angle. To be a Panzer III commander in 1943 was to be a ghost, a relic of a past victory facing a terrifying new reality. And so I end my tour here in the quiet, surrounded by these magnificent failures. The world remembers the victors, the flawless machines that carved empires and won wars. But here, in the silence, I hear a different story. I hear the story of the Covenanter crew who mastered a machine that would never fight. I hear the defiant last stand of the Hago commander, knowing his tank was a tinderbox. I hear the clever M3 Lee crew, coordinating 7 men to turn a design flaw into a weapon. I hear the grim determination of the T-26 driver, charging forward in his coffin on tracks. These tanks are not monuments to failure. They are monuments to the human spirit's refusal to surrender to its limitations. They prove that courage is not measured by the thickness of your armor or the caliber of your gun. It is measured in the moment you climb into a flawed machine, knowing the odds are stacked against you, and you turn the key anyway. It is found in the ingenuity that turns a weakness into a strength, and the sacrifice that paves the way for a better future. The lesson of this haul is simple, yet profound. It is not the quality of the steel that defines the warrior, but the quality of the heart beating within it. And that is a story more powerful and more inspirational than any victory. Thanks for walking with me tonight. I'll see you again.